Thank you, Dirk. No pressure. I hope it will be entertaining enough. I think you wanted to deliver maybe some intro words before I start, Dirk, to recap a bit on the overall framework.
Yes, and thank you, Virginia, for those who haven't heard us speaking before on the One Planet initiative. You might recall that the SDGs have one dedicated objective, SDG 12, on sustainable consumption and production. And tourism is mentioned over there, but we didn't take it just because of the tourism mention. Those who have spoken to us, we were actually back then participating in the negotiations of where tourism appears and not. And we knew that tourism would appear in SDG 8, in SDG 12. Our lobbying was focused on SDG 8, the economic impact. Yeah, but today we speak about our commitment to SDG 12. We believe that tourism can, first of all, be an agent of change. And second of all, we believe that the tourism sector can be a pretty catalytic of the reasons. I spoke of the reasons before. We are a human-to-human interaction. If we are doing things right and we demonstrate that this is not just on the surface, but it's a lasting impact, then we can accelerate action. With that, Virginia, I think enough introduction. Let's speak about the facts.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dirk. And hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure to see you again, many familiar faces and the new faces as well. So great to be able to give you an update of what we're doing within the framework of the One Planet Network, which, as you may know, has a mandate from the United Nations General Assembly to support directly the implementation of SDG 12 on sustainable consumption and production. But as we all know, SDGs are cross-cutting, and the program impacts also in many other SDGs, mainly the environmental ones, which are the ones that you see on the screen. We are not alone. There are, trying to switch the slide here, sorry. All right, apologies. We're not alone. The network is broader than tourism. There are actually 6 programs working to support SDG 12 and the connected goals. The overall secretariat is with the UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, but we at UNWTO are leading the tourism program. And let's say that we were confronted with the challenge to move the slide. Yeah. Okay, these things. Yeah, sorry. We were confronted with the challenge to, let's say, make sustainable consumption and production something tangible, something actionable. And we came to the conclusion that we could land it if we prioritize certain elements, catalytic elements for transforming our sector. Therefore, we launched 3 work streams. The first one is on climate action. It's called the Glasgow Declaration on Climate Action in Tourism. And then the other 2 are focusing on more, let's say, the integration of circular economy in the tourism value chain. So we focus on plastic pollution, how to transition to a circular economy of plastics, and we focus on food waste as catalyzers of the change. So let's start with the Glasgow Declaration that I think many of you are familiar with, but just as a recap, I don't think I need to remind anyone that we are going or living in a climate emergency. And what really motivated us to launch this initiative was that report that Dirk was alluding to, where we finally got to, let's say, estimate the volumes of domestic tourists, the transport emissions from tourism. When we measured those, we saw, and knowing that transport is the biggest part of our emissions, we saw that we were not really going to make it in terms of staying aligned with the global climate goals. So we saw that from 2005 to 2015, emissions had grown by 62%. And we also saw that from 2016 to 2030, the forecast was telling us that within a business as usual scenario, we were going to increase again 25%. If you think about what the science is telling us, like how do we actually stay within global warming of a maximum of 1.5 degrees, science tells us that by 2030, we need to cut emissions by 43% with regards to a 2010 baseline. So we were not only cutting, but actually increasing quite largely. And then we thought, okay, we really need to make a call for action for stakeholders to engage and for stakeholders to have a unified approach that can allow us to advance in a more consistent manner. That is the Glasgow Declaration. You see the commitments on the screen. Anybody can subscribe it. We have signatories of all kinds. So of course you support the global goals if you commit. We request signatories to develop a climate action plan, just so that, let's say, what we are planning to implement is somewhat structured and can be tracked. And we recommend that the plans are aligned with 5 pathways: measure, decarbonize, regenerate, collaborate, and finance. There is also reporting attached to being a signatory. So on an annual basis, we will call you and request what progress you have achieved implementing your plan. It's a means of, let's say, promoting accountability, although we do not audit anybody, but we try to promote accountability through reporting. Right now, since the launch in November 2021 at COP26, we are over 800 signatories. We are doing now the last counts. I think we will be probably around, probably surpassing 850. And you can see most of the signatories are businesses. In fact, there are a lot of tour operators, which are signatories. Destinations, which encompass national tourism authorities, national tourism organizations, DMOs, are for the time being 10% of the signatories. And this year we will be again at the COP, bringing or positioning our sector as part of the solution to climate change with an event that will take place on the 5th of December. What, let's say, will be the main focus of our presence at the COP is to show implementation, to show what have we achieved, right? Because we ask people to report. So let's report ourselves on the collective progress of Glasgow Declaration. We've been working on compiling progress updates and climate action plans from the signatories, basically through 2 surveys, one launched in January, another one in June, to give more people time to reply. And we got more or less 400 responses, out of which almost 250 came also with a climate action plan. For the time being, 30 destinations have submitted climate action plans. For instance, just to name a few, Visit Finland, or Barcelona, Vancouver Island, Portugal, Valencia, Flanders, Oregon coast, etc., etc. And these plans, I mean, not the 30, but the 249 are coming from 54% of them are coming from launch partners. Launch partners is the group of signatories that were together when we launched. So the first 300, which of course, if you think we are requesting plans to be delivered within 12 months, they were long due. So half of the 54% of the plans are coming from launch partners. Some of the signatories echoed quite a number of difficulties preparing their plans. I think we have maybe extra 30% that requested extensions because they were still trying to navigate this area, which they considered challenging. But they are responsive. Only, I would say, maybe 22% of those launch partners were not responsive. So we're quite happy with the, if you allow me, compliance rates, because mainly most of them were replying. In March, we launched an interesting report. Dirk was making reference to it before as well, which is, let's say, an overview of existing tools and methodologies to measure greenhouse gas emissions. And we looked at over 50 tools and methodologies addressed to accommodation businesses, addressed to tour operators, and addressed to destinations. And we also reviewed the, let's say, measurement practice of over 450 large companies to try to identify these tools, like who was using what. And then once a tool was identified, we revised it more thoroughly. And yeah, you can basically see the results in the report. As Dirk mentioned, there are some de facto standards, notably for the accommodation sector. We see that HCMI is quite a popular tool. Is not the case for destinations. Actually, destinations were the less served by existing tools and methodologies in terms of measuring greenhouse gas emissions. We, in general terms, saw that Isidora also mentioned it is relatively in its infancy, the measurement of greenhouse gas emissions in our sector. And maybe it's because many still see measurement as a let's say, burden, if instead of an enabler, we really need to focus on promoting the benefits of measurement. You all know what we're talking about here, right? INSTO is focusing on measurement. So that making the business case for measurement, how measuring will enable us to make better decisions, also applies to the climate space. And besides promoting the benefits of measuring, we came to the conclusion that prioritizing the usability is probably a more strategic approach than going for absolute perfection. It's quite daunting to start measuring, but it's better to start than just to wait for the perfect methodology to come or somebody to come and do it for you. We saw there's quite a lack of consensus on what to be included in a measurement exercise. What are the boundaries? Where do we set the borders of that data sample? And yeah, for instance, debates on should I include aviation or not for a tour operator, or for a territory, where do I start measuring? Where do I stop? What's my scope 3 as a territory? How do I combine my measurement with the measurement of the city or the administrative unit where I belong? So there's need for guidance, as you can imagine. And we also saw that there are new tools, new generation tools that are helping advancing the measurement. But as I said, few of them are applicable to destinations. These, let's say, more intuitive tools can definitely come to aid the SMEs, responding to Mr. Ioannis there. But for destinations, we have quite some work ahead of us. And there are obviously other areas which require attention, that are climate risk evaluations, and also measuring the potential of nature to sequester carbon, etc. There is the report I just mentioned, and many others are compiled in what we call the repository of tools and resources, which is on the One Planet website, and where basically we are including reports that can be useful for our stakeholders to advance on climate action. We also try to disseminate the best practices or learnings from stakeholders, and we carry out webinars more or less regularly that are always available on our website, if you would like to watch it, together with some case studies. Dirk, do you have any comments for Glasgow? Should I continue with plastics?
And yes, I have a little comment. First of all, we invite you strongly to talk to us when you are interested in climate action planning at destination level. We have made a lot of experience, as Virginia just highlighted it over here, especially on the measurement front. And those insights are extremely helpful. It was not just 500 companies, it was the leading 500, because what we were looking at were the commitments. We looked at the WTTC report, we looked at the commitments towards the Glasgow Declaration and the Tourism Declares Declaration. We looked at the leading commitments, analyze that, and what we can, for SAFE, can say, we have looked at all the leading elements taking place in the tourism sector around the world. And that is what we compiled together in this report. So that is really cutting edge insights on what is taking place and helps you to prioritize. The other thing, Virginia, we will publish very soon. It's in the finalization, a guide which helps you to look at existing planning literature for this at destination level for climate action. So it's an overview what destinations have been guided by, especially on the focus of adaptation. And we think that that is a very good basis for anybody who right now wants to focus on mitigation, to take these techniques also into account. It's helping you, enabling you. But a big invitation, and that should be the result of today's presentation on One Planet, is please engage with us on those initiatives if that subject area, as Isidora mentioned it before, is of interest for you.
Thanks, Dirk, for complementing there. So I move into the plastics initiative, which, as I mentioned in the beginning, is one of the ways we are addressing circular economy in tourism. The way it works is similar to the Glasgow Declaration. So it's a voluntary commitment. Anyone can subscribe it. You will be asked to report. The particularity here, I mean, with Glasgow, obviously, we're trying to contribute to the Paris Agreement. Here, what we're trying to do is to make sure that the sector is ready for when the upcoming plastics treaty will be into force. You know that countries are now negotiating a legal binding instrument to eliminate or to eradicate plastic pollution, which it's not yet certain how it would look like, but many say it would be some sort of Paris Agreement, but for plastics. So we want to support our sector to be ready. You all see regulations are evolving quite rapidly in the area of plastic pollution. So how can we support stakeholders in tourism to be alert and active before the time comes and as soon as possible? So the commitments are structured in a hierarchy. Main priority has to be attributed to eliminating problematic plastics, not only because this is common sense not to use single-use plastics, but also taking into account that recyclability and recycling rates globally are depressing. It's very little what we really managed to recycle. According to UNEP, is between 10 and 20%. So since recycling is somewhat failing, we really need to make sure we minimize the use of plastics as much as possible. That's why second level, we promote reuse models. This can also create, let's say, loops and local supply chains, dynamization, as these reusable plastics normally need to be sanitized, etc. And sometimes new companies are emerging to provide this service to our industry, and of course, collaboration across the value chain to really understand what suppliers can do and what waste managers can do to maximize the impact of any actions. In this case, again, most of signatories are businesses, 95%. We have few destinations which have joined. You can see them on the screen. And we are having Colombia now in the pipeline and Costa Rica that will be soon, hopefully signing at national level. Same as for the Glasgow Declaration, all the research that we produce is compiled in the repository online. For example, last year, we piloted for the first time the implementation of the measurement methodology for accommodation businesses, meaning those accommodation businesses that are large companies that are they have a mandatory requirement to report to us, because for smaller ones it's voluntary. They piloted the measurement methodology, and that's how, for instance, we released this 2022 annual progress report, where we identified that 99 grams of plastic are in use per guest night, for example, to give you a metric. And we hope to really engage more with destinations in the next reporting cycle. Also being mindful that the commitment for a destination is not to measure the weight of plastics in the destination, but rather to play a multiplier role. Like, how can the destination support those taking action, accommodation businesses, tour operators, etc. And then the last work stream is on food waste, trying to contribute to a more sustainable food system through what we do on tourism, and once more presenting a hierarchy to take action where top priority needs to be allocated to preventing food waste in the first place. Then for the food waste, for the food surplus, that was not possible to consume, make sure that is redistributed as much as possible, and where regulations allow, redistributed to people, and then the third level would be to divert it from landfill. There are many techniques, lots of technologies available, not necessarily cheap in some cases, but in others, yes, and they can be installed in destinations, so that we, through valorization processes, we minimize food waste from landfill and close the loop. The last, let's say, guiding materials that we have released are this procuring food sustainability fact sheet series, procurement, although I've been speaking, let's say, downstream, prevent, redistribute, and circulate the waste. Procurement is a key strategy. We need to reduce food waste from the time we procure food waste. So we release these guiding documents with interesting data points to raise awareness and provide suggestions. And that's all for my update. I just hope we can welcome you on board these initiatives very soon. Dirk, over to you.
Thank you very much, Virginia. I think that was spicy. And right now, I have the last carrot for those who are still doubtful whether to engage or not. We are very keen to show to the world also the progress is made. It's not necessarily only UNWTO. guiding you over there, but the progress has to be implemented by you. Very practical example of how we did that was last year's COP. We took over there Guanajuato as an example, and the Canary Islands, two observatory areas, two areas which were committed to climate action and have signed the Glasgow Declaration. We took them to the COP. And what we explained over there at the COP very prominently was, in the case of Guanajuato, how the cooperation is taking place between tourism and the ones in charge of environment and planning. And in the Canary Islands, an innovative model how tourism transportation, which is usually seen as we can't fix that. We just can over there apply sustainable aviation fuel. How this focus over there is prioritized in the Canary Islands. So our carrot for you is next year we have a COP CBD. So if you work with us, you are innovative, you are committed. That is what we are eager to showcase over there as well. We still don't have a commitment right now how to do that best, but it's our wish together with you then to demonstrate where the level of implementation in tourism is. What are the real advances? We showed you right now what we are doing on food. We are showing you what we are doing in plastic on net positive. That is for the CBD. That's a very good platform to showcase it over there. Same for the COP. If you are engaging with us, working innovatively, and you allow us to bring over their cases to the forefront of the global discussions, making that case, then you are definitely on the list, on the short list for the candidates for next year's COP UNFCCC. So that is the little carrot. It's very sweet. It's a very nice incentive. But besides that, we also want to advance together with you.